And also, if there are people outside, we can ask them to come inside. Uh, I'll now request Mr. Agarwal and Mr. Mehta to kindly join us on the stage. Let's welcome them with a huge round of applause. Mr. Mehta is absolutely a known name. Uh, in his various capacities, he has created wonders. So with this, should we start? So we'll start. I think we'll start with a welcome address by Mr. Agarwal, and then it will carry on the session. Mr. Agarwal.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. It is my immense pleasure to honor and welcome you all here on the behalf of Indian Chamber of Commerce. And I would like to extend my warm welcome to everyone who is present here. It gives me a great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Sanjeev Mehta, Executive Director of El Catalan India. As we all know, he is the doyen of Indian FMCG sector as a vital sector and act as a bellwether for economic trends. Mr. Mehta has been associated with Unilever Group for over 3 decades. He has extensive senior leadership and global operational experience spanning 25 countries globally, including South Asia, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa. It has been the longest, he has been the longest serving chairman, CEO, and the managing director, Hindustan Unilever Limited. Under his leadership, the market cap of the Hindustan Lever Limited went up fivefold to 76 billion, making it as fifth most valuable company in the country. Following his stint at Unilever, he has stepped into a new avatar as an executive chairman, India of El Catalan. Mr. Mehta, leadership is not just about numbers. He is firm and very compensate capitalism and an active proponent and purpose-driven and value-led business. He is extremely passionate about contributing in the Indian growth story, driving climate action, enhancing livelihoods, and advocating the diversity and inclusion. His leadership at Unilever was deeply intertwined with the social impact for empowering 2 lakh Shakti Ammas, rural micro entrepreneur, to champions gender partying and management. He exemplified with a few to lead with purpose. His vision about sustainability to the fore and recycling more plastic than saved trillion liters of water and creating Suvidha Center in Mumbai, slum offering sanitation and dignity to thousands of people. His non-executive directorship with Danone, a French company, Dr. Reddy Laboratories, Air India as a president, commissioner of Unilever Indonesia, showcase his global governance, acumen, and deep understanding as a responsible stakeholder and in capitalism. With his vast experience, worldview, and unshakable ethic compass, Mr. Mehta is the best person to understand the next wave of Indian consumer ecosystem through his experience, innovation, incredible participation, capital, and mentorship. Therefore, let me once again welcome Mr. Sanjeev Mehta and hear from him on India's growth story, the FMCG sector, and his new inning in the world of private equity. Sir.
Sekarwal, thank you. Uh, it, seem, uh, it seems Mr. Mehta's achievements are never ending. A long list. I think in whatever role he has been, he has created new benchmarks, milestones, and every segment he has created something, whether that is business or sustainability, CSR strategy, and there is a lot to gain from him. So I think it will be a pleasure to request you to please share your thoughts, and then we can get into the questions.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure to come here and share my thoughts. So what I intend to do is we'll have some questions which I'll do my best to answer. But I would like this evening to be a bit more engaging. I'll be very happy if any questions that you may have, whether it's about the Indian economy, about the corporate sector, about geopolitics, anything that you may have, absolutely feel to raise, and I'll do my best to answer. So let's start.
Sir, with such a beautiful journey in creating such a world-class company in India, you must have gone through much deeper challenges. And at the time where there was no digitalization, there was no such uh, social medias and all. Can you just share your experience? Because today every tool is with us, and still we find it extremely challenging to overcome. So we would love to know, your thoughts, how you have been able to, overcome that past challenges at such a, crucial time, and how you are able to manage so much issues at one time. Like I run a steel company, a metal company. I feel like, every time I'm always, surrounded by multiple issues, challenges. And if I want to do something new, that also, give me a lot of challenge. So would love to hear something about your journey.
Yeah.
And your values, how you have been able to
Sure.
create such a beautiful impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My first job was with a company called Union Carbide. It was an American multinational. And I was 23 years old when I was in the parent company headquarters in Connecticut, Danbury, Connecticut, when the Bhopal gas tragedy happened. And within a few weeks, I was asked to go down to Bhopal and become a member of the crisis team. So that, I believe, was the time when a boy became a man. Bhopal gas tragedy is still talked about as perhaps the world's biggest industrial disaster. And 33 years back, I joined Unilever. And for 21 years, I had the privilege and honor of running Unilever's businesses in 25 countries. And during this period, I saw several crises. One was when the Gulf War happened. I was chairman of Unilever in Bangladesh, when there was a lot of angst against the American and British companies because of the second Gulf War. And as the largest multinational in Bangladesh, Unilever was a lightning rod. The third big crisis I'd faced was when I was chairman of North Africa, Middle East, when the Arab Spring happened. And those of you who might be interested in history, It started from Tunis when a fruit vendor self-immolated himself, and the crisis spread across the region, from Tunisia to Libya to Syria. Egypt, where we had a very large business, was up in flames. Then, of course, 10 years earlier, when I took over as the CEO and then chairman of Hindustan Unilever, we had our own crisis, from demonetization to COVID. And we also had the introduction of GST. So I think if you run large businesses, big businesses, crisis will be a way of life. You know, many years back, the Federal Chairman, Fed Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan had talked about that the era of great moderation is over. And to all the people who are in business today, you will face many more turbulences than what we saw in the previous 20, 30 years. And we have seen it in the world, whether it is geopolitics, whether it is global financial crisis, whether it was the zoonotic disease-led COVID, or now you're seeing the tariff war happening across the world, the Ukraine-Russia, the Israel-Palestine. Now, this will have ramifications of different order for different businesses. You know, Chinese is not the flavor of the day in India, but in Chinese language, the world crisis is broken up, is made up of two characters. One is danger, the other is opportunity. So if I have to answer in a very simple way, that whenever there is a crisis, while you're facing the danger, hunt for opportunities. And that's what makes a difference. I'll give you a small example. When Arab Spring happened, this was in Egypt, and Egypt was up in flames. Mubarak had been dethroned. Even the police had left the barracks. That was a time I had called up my managing director in Egypt, and I told him, revise the business plan, and I want you to invest more money in the country. He first thought I'm joking, that here is the country in flame, everything is stopped. Why am I asking him to invest more money? I said, Khalid, I'm very serious about it. Please go ahead and develop a new business plan. So he came back with a couple of million euros. So I said, Khalid, I'm not talking about playing on the edges. I want you to make a seriously different business plan. We will fund it from the region. And I was very clear with him. I said, if we win, the credit will be yours. If we lose, the responsibility will be mine. And that was a time when in the country, everyone had stopped advertising. People had withdrawn distribution, closed factories. When people would open up television, the only ads they would see is Unilever's, nothing else. When people were withdrawing distribution, we expanded distribution. It wasn't a surprise when in the global investor calls, most of the global companies used to talk about the crisis in the Middle East as a reason for the soft numbers. We kept growing massively, double digit, and increasing our market share. So whenever there is crisis, play a counterintuitive game, be bold, hunt for opportunities, and you'll come out as a winner. Please. Yeah.
Hello, hello.
That's a very fascinating example you gave of Union Carbide. I should say, the tryst with Bhopal and thereafter in the Middle East. My question to you, Mr. Mehta, is that in India, you see, we are having 2 points of little tension and unease in the Northeast and in the extreme North. The Northeast states, let me be precise, and the erstwhile state of J&K, now state and union territories. Do you think industry could play a role like the one you mentioned in easing tensions there and drawing the people of those regions into the national mainstream, providing them with good employment opportunities, future prospects? Because economic prosperity is a gateway to peace, as you rightly mentioned. An engagement of young minds with what are their future prospects and job opportunities and business opportunities is probably a way to win peace rather than with hard hats and nail boots.
I would fully agree with you. I believe the genesis of most problems, not all, most problems are economic issues. And in both these parts of the region that you talked about, we have to win the hearts and the minds of the people. And just think of a scenario that if you have to make them part of the national mainstream, you have to ensure that there is economic prosperity in the region. If we do not do that, they will always be on the periphery, feel left out, and that is what results in a lot of discontentment amongst the people. Both from a government point of view, yes, we have to look after the security because these are border states. It's not just about the security of the people in the state, it's also about the security of the country. But from a long-term perspective, there is no option but to ensure economic prosperity. And I think we should, as an industry, take a bold step, help them, facilitate them, ensure there is good deal of interconnectivity when it comes to business, and help these regions to prosper. Their prosperity is an enlightened self-interest.
My pointed query was that, do you think you can advise any industry or any chamber to come forth with this kind of an engagement plan where the youth of the region are diverted towards economic progress and economic issues and their prospects of prosperity and engagement for the future, rather than be caught in the political agitations and other conundrum, which is obviously in the interest of other competing powers in neighboring countries?
Oh, absolutely. You know, today we are sitting in the annual meeting of ICC. I think I would request Mr. Agarwal. Mr. Agarwal, it's a very valid suggestion the gentleman has given. Perhaps you could pick up this challenge and ask yourself, how could ICC as a chamber start the process of facilitating increased trade, commerce, and industry in these 2 important parts of the country? Take steps. Only with small steps will we be able to climb the mountain, but someone has to do it. Why don't you all take a lead?
See, I totally appreciate, all these kind of issues, unrest, and too much of turbulence in any of the province is majorly, the D factor is a economic factor. So as a chamber, I would say that, we have to identify the need of the hour. Through the resources, we have to see the skill, the resource, which is going to be an appropriate for that sector, to identify, to go more deeper, and how can we work together in enhancing, in enriching, educating the province where we see there can be any kind of eruptions or any kind of a challenge. I totally agree. There's no uh, chance of any kind of no opportunity. There is always an opportunity, and where there is more issues, the opportunity is, more. So we have to work in detail, understand, go more deeper, understand the grievances, have to discuss with the uh, government, understand the need, which has to be also sustainable. Because till we create a sustainable environment across that kind of a region, we will not be able to uproot the problem. So we have to go more deeper, more in the roots, more in the heart, more with the people, more with the system, and to understand that how can we create this crisis into a bigger opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Mehta, you just mentioned that in every problem you see an opportunity, and I agree with that. Currently, as a nation, we are grappling with the tariff war more with America. So, first question is, what solution do you think will come out of it, and what opportunity you think it will come out of it?
Thank you for that question. When it comes to, if I have to do the sheer number game, yeah, the quantum of exports, merchandise exports that we do to US, and if you have to look at the value add, then the impact on the GDP will be just about 30, 40 pips. That's not significant. But we must remember that US is the largest economy in the world. We cannot alienate them. I think the best thing would be the way the government is doing, show restraint, not to make loose statements, and sooner or later, there will be a deal. India and US are natural partners. We have so much in common. And I believe that sanity will prevail and a deal will happen. But I think if we have to look at it from a lens of India, if India has to compete on the world stage, we have to compete on cost, quality, service, and innovation. They're not either or, they're all and. We have to become the lowest cost producer in the world in many categories. Today, if we look at our cost of logistics, is at least 300, 400 bips higher than a peer group. Similarly, it's the cost of capital. But if we put a focus on, I can tell you that we can become a cost leader as well. But the biggest challenge we have is innovation. India today does not have the innovation ecosystems. When I talk about innovation ecosystems, I'm talking about academia, private sector R&D, public sector R&D, private capital, all come together to come out with path-breaking innovations. China, if you look at it, they started the journey by imitating and copying other products. Then they became cost leaders. And now they are moving up the value chain. If you just look at it from the lens of AI, the number of patents being filed on AI application are more coming out of China than from the US. And if you go and see today, the kind of cars that are being made by BYD, they are best in class. Yeah, if you look at the battery technology, again, they are moving towards best in class. Now, as a country, India today, we do not have global brands. Today, if you were to go and ask that, is there any industry where when you talk about the global stage, India comes top of mind? We will struggle. And I think that is something which we need to double down on. I was so happy when last year, the government earmarked 1 lakh crore as an R&D, as a risk capital. Recently, they have framed some rules to start dispersing that money. But that would again be pivotal to kickstart basic innovation in the country. I can give you so many examples. You know, one of the classic examples is take Hsinchu Tech Park in Taiwan, which is the home of semiconductors. 10% of country's GDP comes from that tech park. And if you go over there, you will find the ecosystem completely prevalent over there. Same as if you go to Wageningen University, it is 100 kilometers from Amsterdam. That is for agriculture and innovation ecosystem. No wonder that Netherlands, which is such a small country, is the 3rd largest exporter of horticulture products in the world. Or you look at Boston for biotechnology. They have created that ecosystem. In India, we need to create that ecosystem so that we can start germinating great innovations out of India. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for your presence today and
I'm delighted to be here.
deep insight. I actually wanted to pick your brain and see where you think the consumer market and the landscape is going to go in the next 5-10 years. And especially which segments do you think are going to evolve more out of India and across the world?
You know, I'm of the firm belief that India will be the biggest consumption story for this decade and beyond. Yeah. Now, unlike China, 62% of India's GDP is driven by private consumption. China was export-driven economy. Their private consumption was in the vicinity of 35-40%. Ours is 62%. If you have to look at India today, the exciting bit is there is no category which is anywhere close to maturity. None whatsoever. The other lens that you need to look at, if India, okay, let me first give you a story of India's GDP. 50 years prior to India's independence, our GDP grew at 0.5%, CAGR. Yeah. For the first 40 years, we grew at 3.5%. For the last 35 years, post 91, say 34 years, we have grown at a CAGR of 6.5%. All of us aspire India to grow at 8+%. That's the right kind of aspiration. But even if you assume 6.5% and you take 3.5-4% as inflation, you're talking about 10-11% to be a nominal GDP growth. 10-11% implies that over 7 years, we should be doubling our economy to 8 trillion. In 14-15 years, we should be again doubling it to 16 trillion. Yeah. We're talking about 12 trillion as the delta economy on a nominal basis. If you have to look at it from a real GDP perspective, it would be about 8 trillion. 62% of that, anywhere between 4 to 6 trillion, will be increase in consumption in India. Just think of it. the size of India's GDP, that would be the kind of consumption, more than that, will happen in the next 14 odd years. Now, all of you who know maths, you know it that the multiplier effect kicks in when the size becomes bigger. Yeah, when we were a $1 trillion economy, a 10-11% would mean a delta of 100 billion. Now we are talking about 400 billion, and that will keep growing up. When I look at it from a consumer perspective and break up the pyramid, 4% of India's household have the purchasing power of the West. 11% are what I would call as the upper middle class. Then you have about 30%, they're an archetype middle class, aspiring, better education, नौकरी मिल जाए, घर बना ले, स्कूटर खरीदें, स्कूटर खरीद लिया तो छोटी गाड़ी खरीदें. And then you have 55%, which is the bottom of pyramid. It is a bit different in the sense they are not from a perspective that people go hungry. We have the world's largest welfare program running, where 800 million people are given food, free food grains. But these are people whose propensity to consume is very high. You give them a little bit more money, they'll go and spend because their needs are unfulfilled. If you look at the spectrum, you move from needs to wants to desires as you move up the pyramid. जिनकी need fulfill नहीं होती है, अगर आप उनको पैसा देंगे, they'll go and spend that money. As you go up, they have much more disposable income, so they become more discerning consumers. And that is where you see the premiumization happening. In India, you can play across the pyramid. And if you really want to become a category leader, you need to straddle what I call as the price benefit pyramid. Yeah. At the bottom of the pyramid, you need to ensure that you have good quality products at affordable price. As you go up, you need to have not just functional benefits in products, but also the emotional benefits. अगर आप BMW खरीदते हैं, and if you compare it with a Maruti, there is no correlation between the quality or the emotional benefit and the cost increase of that product. When a person buys a Beamer, they want to tell the world that I have arrived in life. Yeah. So there is that emotional benefit. But the wonderful story about India is you can grow across the spectrum of the society and still create massive value. So I'm very excited about consumption. Very excited about consumption.
Yeah. So
Please.
Yep. Sanjeev Mehta ji, I am Shiv Kumar Ishwaran. I'm the chairman of the ICC Tamil Nadu State Council. So I want to ask you two questions which is interrelated. One, has the ease of doing business in India improved after 2014? If yes, what is it that they have done right to improve it? If not, what can be improved better? Second is India right now far less susceptible to the global shocks than it was before 2014?
Thank you. You know, I'll come to the second question and then I'll come to the first question. If you look at during the global financial crisis, around 2013, when the Fed said taper, rupee crashed. Look at today. It's a very different India. You've got $700 billion of reserves so that the volatility of the foreign exchange can be cushioned. Your fiscal deficit is on a glide path. Your monetary deficit is in the vicinity of 1%. And we are growing anywhere in the vicinity of 7 to 8%. When we were growing up, we could have never thought that UK could have an inflation higher than India. And that has happened over the last few years. So you're absolutely right in stating that from an economic perspective, from a macroeconomic stability, from a political stability, India today is in a much better position to absorb the shocks. If you go back to when the oil crisis happened in the 90s, and then with the Gulf War, India was destabilized with the kind of inflation that came in. Now, the strength of India also enables us to go and look at strategic autonomy and go and buy Russian oil. Say, India of the past, we would have struggled to stand up and still go and buy Russian oil. But we have done that. And that has also been one of the key reasons why we have been able to cushion the adverse impact which could have come in from oil shock. Coming to ease of doing business. You know, one of the biggest ease of doing business, I would say, has been GST. Prior to GST, if you had to move your goods from one part of the country to the other, it was a nightmare. The number of chungi nakas, octroi, sales tax. We were talking about 18, 20 taxes. Now, post the GST, when I was running HUL, we reconfigured the entire supply chain. We put in big factories, multi-product factories, close to where the consumers were. And in the process, we were able to reduce our cost of logistics by 30% from a kilometer ton perspective. That's ease of doing business. But if you were to ask me today, I'll give you another couple of examples. How today the new India is changing. This was in 2022. We were setting up a big factory in Sumerpur, Bundelkhand in UP. This was a state-of-the-art factory. And I'd gone to meet Yogi ji. And I told him, Yogi ji, मेरे पास 3 समस्याएं हैं जिसके लिए मैं आपके पास आया हूं. तो बोलते हैं बताइए. मैंने बोला पहली कि स्टेट इंसेंटिव जो आपने अनाउंस किए हमने अप्लाई किए हैं, अभी तक हमें परमिशन नहीं मिली. So he asked his industry secretary. Industry secretary said कि हमने कल ही इनको एक ईमेल भेजी है क्लैरिफिकेशन के लिए. योगी जी stopped him and said, ये ईमेल छोड़िए, अब 2 हफ्ते लीजिए, 2 हफ्ते में इनको अप्रूवल मिल जानी चाहिए, नहीं तो आप फाइल लेके हमारे पास आइए. Then I told योगी जी कि योगी जी हम चाहते हैं हमारी फैक्ट्री में 50% महिलाएं हों from management to shop floor level. उनकी सुरक्षा हमारी जिम्मेदारी. हम हॉस्टल बना रहे हैं, हम गेस्ट हाउस बना रहे हैं जहां वो महिलाओं के माता पिता आए रहें और देखें उनकी बेटियां कितने सुरक्षित ढंग से हैं. और आसपास के गांव से जब महिलाएं आएंगी, हमारी बस जाएगी आर्म्ड और उनको लेके आएगी. लेकिन हमारी समस्या है कि आपका कानून कहता है कि 7 बजे के बाद महिलाओं को हम भर्ती नहीं कर सकते हैं और हमारी फैक्ट्री तो 3 शिफ्ट चलेगी, तो हम कैसे भर्ती कर पाएंगे. तो बोलते हैं आप कब फैक्ट्री खोल रहे हो. मैंने बोला हम खोल रहे हैं, this was sorry in October of 21, and I said we are opening the factory in June of 22. He said आप फैक्ट्री खोलिए, हम कानून बदल देंगे. Then I पूछते हैं तीसरी समस्या क्या है. मैंने बोला कानपुर से सुमेरपुर तक सड़क ठीक नहीं है, हमारे सैकड़ों ट्रक चला करेंगे, स्पीड कम हो जाएगी, एक्सीडेंट्स हो सकते हैं. आप जून 22 को खोल रहे हैं ना फैक्ट्री, हम सड़क बना देंगे. After that we did not follow. His principal secretary would call up my executive director to brief What is the status? All three things, including the law, was changed. This is the new India, ladies and gentlemen. I still wouldn't say that on the ease of doing business, we have become a very easy place to do business. We have still a long way to go. My pitch to the government would be, जैसे हम zero based budgeting करते हैं, वैसे we should start with zero based laws. हमें ये नहीं करना चाहिए कि ये हमारे provisions हैं, क्या क्या हटा सकते हैं. We should start with zero law. क्या हमें provision करना चाहिए, जो रहने चाहिए, और सब हट जाने चाहिए. That is how we have to do it. If you still look at the number of compliances a manufacturing unit has to do in a state, they are massive. So there is a way to go, but I think this government is determined. They are conscious about it, and I think they will embark on that path. Yes, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mehta. My name is Rajamani Krishnamurthy. I represent the stainless steel industry. My question is, we have been struggling. We got some breakthrough on this. On one hand, we are talking about sustainability, then circular economy and all those stuff. But on the other hand, with great difficulty, any government project that comes into tendering, they don't consider the life cycle cost. And with great difficulty, we met Nirmala Sitharaman on this. And she included this on the general finance rule in 2021, saying that life cycle cost may be considered. Now, if you have something like may be considered, our contractors will ensure that it should not be considered. So this is, and with great difficulty, we are trying again to get this, because when you're doing a government project, it should at least last, say, for 100 years, if not more. And we had the recent episodes of the Shivaji statue, falling down because of that. So I need your guidance, and what would be your take, had you been there in our shoes, how to put it across to the government? Thank you.
Let me give you my philosophy on sustainability. If we look at today and factor in India's growth rate, and if we were to look at per capita greenhouse gas emissions, and if India has to grow and become a developed nation, then India cannot afford to have the footprint of the West. We will end up destroying the planet. So India has to decouple our growth from the environment footprints. There's no option around it. And when it comes to sustainability, very often when you embark on this journey, initially it is paying it forward. You incur a cost, but it becomes a much effective option when you go forward, when you have developed the scale, when you start getting the economies of scale. That's when the benefit starts kicking in. I'm not an expert on steel, but let me give you a few examples from consumer goods. Plastic, which has been one of the greatest inventions of our generation, has suddenly become public enemy number one. And that is because of the litter of plastic, whether it is in the oceans, whether it is in the rivers, whether it is in the general land area. And a few years back, we had said as a company that we cannot be just a company which is creating the problem, but we have to become a part of the solution. So one, we said that by 2025, all the plastic packaging that we will be using will be recyclable, reusable, or compostable. Initially, when we started on this journey, I remember the bill that came to us was about 500 crores. Now, it would have been very easy for us to say, let's back out because consumers are not going to pay me money. And we will end up just incurring the cost. But we were very clear that as a leader, we have to take the lead on embarking on this journey. So we started. But as we started progressing, we found new substrates, new ways, new kind of substrate that we brought in. And slowly that extra cost, we were able to wean it away. The second thing we said, to stop the litter, we should start collecting more plastic from the streets of India than is used in the packaging of our goods. So by 2019, we had become plastic neutral. We were collecting more plastic from the streets of India, recycling it, and all our plastic had become recyclable or reusable or from a lens of compostable. So once you start putting your head and mind to it, you can start, initially there would be a cost, but then you will start getting the benefit out of it. You know, when it comes to consumers, if you were to go and ask the consumers that would you pick up a product which is more sustainable, the consumer will say, yes, I will prefer to buy a product which is more sustainable. At the same breath, if you ask the consumer, are you going to pay more? Are you willing to pay more for it? They aren't going to pay you more for it. Yeah. But as a responsible organization, the onus is on us to de-link our growth with our environment footprints. So I would say that you will face hurdles, but please don't give up the path to sustainability. I'm so happy that of the commitments made by different nations in Paris in COP26, India is perhaps one of the few big countries which have delivered on the commitments. Yeah. If we look today, our renewable energy capacity has crossed the 36% mark that we had set for ourselves, and it will be shortly be crossing the 40% mark. So again, it's a fabulous position that India is taking, that we will not just be a polluter, but we will take significant steps to reduce our carbon footprint. We owe it to the future generations. So please don't give it up. Collectively as a steel body, keep going and making a representation, but you should ask yourself, how as a steel company, how as a cement manufacturer, we start embarking on the green manufacturing route. I know. You know, somewhere you will have to use your persuasive skills.
No, I think, his question is like,
If you're not the lowest cost manufacturer, how would you?
one usage is a carbon steel and the other usage is a stainless steel. Like I'm in both the business of stainless steel and carbon steel. And with the innovation happening in the metals in the stainless steel, the life cycle of the stainless steel is almost 2x than the life of the carbon steel.
So you look at it from that lens.
Yeah. So he has to, he is little bit, like the concept of the government cost and little bit of, lack of, adaptability on the better product and the struggling of the people in the stainless steel to overcome the carbon steel.
वैसे एक मैं आपको example बताऊं. Yeah. Till the 1970s, the normal thinking was that if you have to improve the product quality, you will have to improve the cost. That was the conventional thinking. The Japanese car industry turned it around. And by using TPM, TQM, just in time, they started looking at things in a very radically different way. And they said that improving quality and reducing cost can be done together. Now I'll add the third axis. Can we improve the quality, have more sustainable products, at a lower price, then we'll become world leaders. Not easy to do. But I'll tell you something, no country has done it so far. Can we take that up as a challenge? You know, that is how the Japanese destroyed the Detroit car industry.
Good evening, Mr. Mehta.
Hi, good
With your
evening.
vast experience of running so many large consumer-facing businesses in different parts of the world, and of course also in India, my question to you is, how have you seen the perception of Indian consumer brands evolve internationally over the last few decades? Because we hear a lot about how on a global stage, Indian brands are all but missing. We haven't really been able to create a truly global brand. So that was really part one of my question. And secondly, also the perception of the Indian consumer from the perspective of large international consumer-facing companies that look at the Indian market. Are they satisfied with where we are today, or what is the impression? Thank you.
You know, I think before you came in, we talked about it a bit, but I wouldn't mind talking a bit more about the question that you raised. First, you're absolutely right. We will struggle to find an Indian brand which could be called as a global brand. Yeah, a Louis Vuitton, a Toyota, a Chanel, yeah, or a great watch brand. We don't have them. And I can also go back into the cultural aspect that when we were a controlled economy, is our quality standards were very different. They were insulated from what was happening outside India. So even if you made crap product, you were able to sell it. India, really, the globalization started when we opened up the economy in 1991. Yeah. But I think the key thing is our investments in R&D and innovation. If you have to do a path-picking product, you will have to come out with a new molecule, a new formula, a new technology, which will be able to command great respect across the world. And I think that is something as an Indian industry we need to ask ourselves. The spend that we do on R&D is pretty measly. It is less than 1%. And if we have to really go and embark on the next leg of becoming a global country which manufactures global brands, we will have to be best in class when it comes to R&D and innovation. So I was telling the audience that to compete, we have to compete on cost, on quality, on customer service, and innovation. And it is all and, not either or. And if we do that, I see no reason why we cannot build global brands out of India. Now, coming to your second question, there is no large consumer goods company in whose strategy India doesn't come out as a strategic market. India is top of mind for everyone. In the last 2 years, I've addressed a dozen global boards on the India opportunity and how you can make money in India. People increasingly get the India opportunity, but they are a bit cynical and hesitant. Will we be able to make money in India? But when they look at the example of Hindustan Unilever, then they get much more comfortable कि नहीं यार इंडिया में पैसे भी बना सकते हैं, while maintaining the highest standard of ethics. I am very bullish about India. I'm very bullish about India's consumption story. And I'm absolutely certain if we do the right things, we should be able to build great global brands out of India. Yes, gentlemen. 10 minutes.
Hello. Hi, Sanjeev sir. That's really nice to hear a very positive note about India. So, a little introduction. I'm a management consultant by profession and I'm a chief principal of AVA Consulting. That's my own also been in technology and telecom for the longest period of time. CEO of a global travel eSIM telecom company. So I have a slightly different take, and I would like you to clarify if I hope I'm wrong. Do you think that India as a country has digressed from its growth focus by trying to chase certain areas, certain industries, and leaving aside its core 3 or 4 industries that we could have capitalized? And when it comes to your point, when we said that, why don't we have brands there? Number one being agriculture, number 2, textile, and number 3 as tourism. And instead of trying to make technology for others, we should be using technology as a center of excellence to optimize these 3 industries, and we may be able to make bigger brands.
Yeah.
So
You know, you're absolutely right. When you look at it from a core competency perspective, you cannot be good in everything. So you have to identify what are your competitive advantage, either you possess or you create. And in those industries, we should be best in class. No question about it. Agriculture, today, if you look at it, 80% of the agriculture land mass is less than 1 hectare in India. So without the agriculture reforms, which the government had proposed, but unfortunately it got politicized, do you think we can embark on bringing in technology, improving the yield? We could potentially become the granary to the world. But without the agriculture reforms, it is not going to happen. Yeah. So it's very important for us that we build a consensus, a national consensus around some of the key industries. You know, when you talk about textile, I'll give you an example of Bangladesh. Bangladesh, at the beginning of the millennium, when Begum Zia was the prime minister, there used to be frequent hartals. But Bangladesh had realized that for them, salvation lied in developing the RMG industry. And during hartals, if on any car, if you're a normal car, if you take it out on a hartal day, they will throw up stones at it, break it, burn the car, and they won't let you drive on the road. But if you were to put a simple sticker on RMG duty, no one will stop you. That is national consensus. कि जो हड़ताल कर रहे थे, वो भी नहीं रोकेंगे आपको if it was the car was on RMG duty. Yeah. Bangladesh had started exporting more RMG than India. And they do not have the basic industries in textile. They were importing textiles. They were importing buttons and zippers. And they were still exporting more RMG than India. So we need to ask ourselves, why did we miss out on that opportunity? Yes, they had some countries where they were getting preference, but that's part of the story. So we need to identify our core competitive strength or create that. You know, the PLI scheme. One of the main intent behind PLI scheme was to grow scale so that it will create a competitive advantage. That was the intent behind PLI. So still, I would say there are many industries where we can become globally competitive. I'll give you a small example. Why do you think in HUL we moved the market value from $12 billion to $76 billion in 10 years? It is not by taking the price up. One was we became the cost leaders. Our cost in India became even lower than Unilever in China. So if we put our heads and heart to it, We can do it. The second important bit is innovation. A fact which you may not know, there are 900 scientists, out of which over 100 are PhDs working in R&D in Hindustan Unilever. That is how you are able to come out with leading edge product which meets the needs of consumers and at an affordable price. That's the reason I say cost, quality. On quality, I used to do blind product testing. And for 75% of our product portfolio, we were winners on blind product test. So if we focus on these things, cost, quality, service, and innovation, we can become global leaders.
I think Mr. Mehta also has a flight to catch.
I
His team
have
is,
one question, sir. Last question.
The last
sir, if you
question
can.
from here, Mr. Mehta.
Please, sir, kindly.
Last
So
Okay.
I am an infrastructure man. I have just retired from railways. We have seen wonderful development taking place in the last 10, 11 years in the field of infrastructure. And in road sector particularly, EPC contracts have done wonders to give faster roads. So since we have been talking about the R&D and the sustainability, my question is, this EPC contract is a concept in which the complete design and construction is done by the same agency, and that agency is basically selected based on the L1 offer. So is it not contradictory to our concept of sustainability? If the person is asked to make a structure at a lowest cost, will it be sustainable? That is my question. And that also, one more supplement, sir. We have to remember, we don't have a professional engineers act in the country, which the other countries have. So this concept has been borrowed from elsewhere without having the necessary law in the country. That is my point. Thank you.
You know, again, I'll give you that same Toyota example. Toyota proved to the rest of the world that we can lower the cost and improve the quality at the same time. अगर वो दो एक्सेस में कर सकते हैं, हम थर्ड एक्सेस भी ले आए और सस्टेनेबिलिटी. या मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल देता हूं. हमने एक प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च किया था रिन, ब्रांड रिन के अंदर, जिसमें it was better clean at a lower cost and it used 60% less water for rinsing. That is the lens we need to put in. And if we start doing that lens, then we can perhaps come out with sustainable products which are also at a lower cost. So please don't give up on this ambition.
I've been given the dubious privilege to be the last one, and I'm happy for that. Mr. Mehta, you have hit the nail on the head. I'll be happy to host you. Mr. Mehta, I've come back from the US about 3 years ago, and you have hit the nail on the head when you said innovation is the key. I think I've heard at least about 27 times when you said innovation, if not more. Now, you mentioned RIN. I was about to mention RIN as an example. I'm Sensei Raj from Vision India 2032. It's a capacity development movement. In order to reach the $35–40 trillion, it's about 6 to 8.5, the least conservative and the very pragmatic way of looking at the GDP growth rate. We're looking at 6 to 8x growth. That's a no-brainer for anybody to come and invest in the country, much so our own selves, right? Brands are the way which talks about the mature supply chain systems. Now, you and I, we understand the brands are the way to also increase our reputation as a country. And also
Please ask the question, please.
Those two are tied into each other. Now, my question is, what will it take for us to create 1,000 brands in the next 15 years for India to occupy the real estate on the global shelves? Thank you.
You know, at the end of the day today, if you look at whether it's a high-performing company or a high-performing country, if I were to codify it, it's on 3 axes. First is the mindset. Second is the capabilities which are distinctive and hard to replicate. And the third is the high performance anatomy. When we talk about the mindset, Viksit Bharat, Does it really matter whether India will become as a developed nation by 2047 or 2055? It doesn't matter. But today, it is the confidence, the self-belief that we can become a developed nation. And that to me is the biggest advantage of us talking about Viksit Bharat. When you look at capabilities which are distinctive and hard to replicate, I would give two examples. One is DPI, and the second is physical infrastructure. Over a period of last 5-7 years, India has spent $1 trillion on physical infrastructure. If you look at the number of electric roads, electrified railroads, it has gone up from 22,000 kilometers to 50,000 kilometers. Our highways have gone up from 95 to 150,000. And the number of airports have gone up from 74 to 149. We are talking about the largest plane orders have been placed by India. Air India has placed over 530 orders. Yeah. So we are created. Then when you look at it from a performance anatomy, whether it is political stability, whether it is macroeconomic stability, whether India's quest for ease of doing business, whether it is reducing corporate tax to make it competitive with our peer set, whether it is rationalizing GST, I think the government is doing its bit. The onus is now on us as private sector, as entrepreneurs, to lead the way, and we should lead that way.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much. So I now request Mr. Agarwal to please present it. And let us thank Mr. Mehta for very, very insightful, engaging, and excellent session. Great insights. Thank you so much. We know you have a flight, so thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gaur Gopal Das will be joining us in another 5 minutes. So we take a short comfort break. Tea is also there. And we assemble in this room in 10 minutes. Thank you.